Okay, so it's December the 28th, 2023, and I've got a video today on everything that I go through when I get a request from somebody for a mulch job. I've gotten some inboxes about these and thought the best way to do is just create a new mulch video, so to speak. And what I'll say from the word go, this is how I handle it, okay? You handle it however you want. Maybe some of my recommendations aren't for you. That's fine. Do what you want to do. But hopefully you get something out of this. But there's a process that's involved. And as you are doing more mulch, you're going to need to have a process to be consistent. And what I have found over the years that when I follow this process, my closing ratio is much higher. But also, one of the main reasons that I do this is to put out any potential red flags before they become issues, okay? For example, right, it has been my experience that oftentimes on jobs, if I don't have a text, an email, or some sort of communication that I can refer to visually with a client, as a contract is, when I don't have something like that, at the end of the job, it can be very common for them to say, "Oh, but I thought you were going to do this," or they'll say, "Yeah, and I also want you to do this." And there's nothing wrong with that, okay? I don't mean to suggest that these people are trying to pull one over on you, but when you're doing a big project and you've put together your estimate and you have an idea of what your overhead is and where you're at with the total job, where you're going to be a profit margin, those things start to eat away at your profit margin. And just as importantly, when you're in season and you've got 13 people wanting jobs done, it delays, or rather it can delay, when you get on to that next customer. So this is my process, basically. This is a very nuts and bolts, so to speak, explanation of my process. So when I get a call from somebody and they tell me that they want a mulch estimate, I don't care if I've done the job before or not, I'm going to go out and do a visual and I'm going to do a measurement. Even in cases when they say, "Hey, I need you to come by and do my mulch for my house, I need 10 yards of mulch." Okay, I can't tell you guys over the years how many times people have been completely wrong about how much mulch they need. In fact, almost every single time. In fact, one time I had a lady insist that the guy the previous year used 3 yards of mulch on all of her mulch beds when the math came out at 2 inches of mulch for there to be 30 yards of mulch. No joke. So I'm going to go out and do a visual, and I'm going to talk with them. Where did you come up with that number, just so I can understand? Are you only wanting certain beds done? For example, did someone tell you that's what it was? Because what I want to do for you is if you're wanting your whole property mulched, I'll come out and I'll get the area of all the mulch beds, and that way we have the math to know what the total square footage is. And once I have that number in my mind, then I know how much mulch I'm going to need. And typically we put together our estimates are for mulch projects that have 2 to 3 inches of mulch that we're going to put down. Now, I also find out that time, do they want the mulch pulled out or not? Most of the time they don't, but you got to understand, if you're taking out mulch, that's a lot of additional labor, and that's dumping fees wherever you're dumping stuff out. So make sure that you address those concerns from the word go. That being said, we'll come over, like I said, I visit the site, I make my measurements, and then I also ask if they have any concerns. Are there any areas of the mulch beds, for example, that have a tendency to wash out? Because if so, maybe we need to come back when the job is done and hit that with some mulch glue, or maybe even put a thin strip of gravel in that area that can prevent mulch from being washed away. Or maybe we just don't use an ultra-fine mulch. I mean, anytime that I have the opportunity, I'm always going to use the best mulch possible because it's the best advertisement that I have for my work that's done. It's best for the plants. I don't like the lesser grades of mulch because I don't like the big pieces of mulch. They lose their color, they don't break down, and then next year you've got this really weird looking piece of wood basically that has no color to it, and it's just something that's eventually going to have to be cleaned up. Now, there are some times where those types of mulches, people will use them if they're trying to flip a house right away or whatever, but it doesn't matter what the circumstances are. Unless I'm dealing with a bed personally that's going to have a lot of washout, and again, like I said a minute ago, I may use mulch glue on it, I'm always going to use an ultra-fine mulch. I want that bed to look as good as possible. I want that mulch to break down so it can improve the profile for the soil for the plants. We need to figure out what kind of mulch we're going to be using. When I'm putting together the estimate, I'm taking into consideration the concerns that they told me about. Again, Do we have to cut any bushes? Do we need to take any plants out? Do we need to install anything new? All that kind of stuff. Do they have an upcoming party, for example, and they need to have the mulch done, the project done by this date? Whatever it may be, I need to know from the word go. In addition to that, here in central Indiana, if we're going to be doing edging on the beds, we have to call 811 to have them mark the property for utilities. I can't tell you how many times over the years when we didn't do that when we got started, that we'd come through and edge a property and cut the cable or the internet line. And there's a big provider now, MetroNet, which is a big headache because none of them are right on when they mark. They're about a 2-foot deviation anywhere from the left and the right of that marking. So what I always do is we'll call 811. It's a free service, and I let the clients know up front that I can't vouch that the markings are right. We use it as a guide, and we'll go 2 feet to the left and the right of it. You can decide if you still want us to edge it in between that area or not, but if we're going to do that, we're doing that with the understanding that you're going to go ahead and you're going to take care of covering that and paying for the repair if it needs to be repaired. I can tell you, almost any case where it's been cut, there's never been a bill. You call the provider, they come out and they connect it right away. There's never really an issue. It really comes down to how you talk with them about it, but I've never, in all the years that I've done this has never been an issue. We mark it ahead of time, and I can't tell you how many times when they've said, yeah, I had such and such come by a couple years ago, they didn't mark anything, and they cut the internet or whatever. They get frustrated with that. And in this world and time today, a lot of us have mobile phones where we can get on and do, our communicating, our social media, whatever it is. But there's a lot of people out there that their only source of, online, connectivity, so to speak, is with home-based internet. So in many cases, if you cut that, or you cut that cable line, they can't watch their ball game or their drama show or whatever it is, and you could be public enemy #1. And the next thing you know, you got all these negative reviews on the neighborhood website, on Nextdoor or Facebook or whatever, because they were upset and they had access to, something to be able to post right away while they were upset, while they were in the heat of the moment. The biggest factors that influence how much I'm going to charge a client or what I'm going to write an estimate cost-wise comes down to the quality of mulch and the difficulty of the job. Okay. Now I can tell you in 2023, for the last 5 or 6 years, easily in central Indiana, I've been between $85 and $135 per the yard of mulch delivered and installed. And this year, coming into 2024, I'm going up even more because we've had inflation to deal with. Mulch itself is more expensive. Everything associated with doing the work is more expensive. So as a result, I got to stay profitable. I can't stay at that same price point every year. If you're doing that, you're shooting yourself in the foot. A lot of times guys call me and they say they're struggling with, mowing. Well, they've been $40 cutting grass for the last 4 years. They haven't taken an increase while the value of their dollar, their purchasing power and all, has gone down, and their equipment and everything they need to operate has gone up. Insurance, gasoline, the cost of tires, repairs, all that kind of stuff. So you've got to make sure that you're consistently building in an increase. And it's not that much. It's usually 2 or 3% at the minimum. In some cases, I might be between 5 and 10% even. The other things I'm going to consider are we doing a cleanup? Are there a lot of leaves to move and get out of there? Are there bush trimmings? I mentioned briefly earlier, are we doing edging? And here's another thing to understand too. When you're doing the edging, are you using a spade or are you using some sort of a machine? It has been my experience over the years that if the ground has moisture in it, we try to use the machine, 9 times out of 10, it just turns into slush. We don't get a good edge out of it. So we have to spade edge it. Well, that's a lot more time. That's a lot more labor. Then you've got material, because 9 times out of 10, a client's not going to want you to throw that edging up into the mulch bed. Okay, they're going to want you to get rid of it. Most places that we go to, they don't want to have anything to do with it when we go to dump it. So then we're left with having to put it in their trash can, and that could be a nightmare depending on how much edging you've done, because it could be really hard on them to be able to get that out to the street. So you're going to have to make arrangements to get their trash out, and if it's going to overflow, they can't put their trash out. I mean, it's a nightmare. So make sure that you understand if you're going to be doing edging, what type of edging it's going to be. And for us, what we always do, if we're spade edging, we're automatically going to charge more for that, maybe $3 a lineal foot, as much as that much, because it's more time, it's labor intensive, and again, you've got that material to deal with afterwards. Again, I mentioned briefly, are we doing plant installs, extractions? You got to include that. You want to include in your estimate your forms of payment, when you're going to be paid, and what forms of payment that you're going to accept. That's very important, okay? And then also, I always try to sell monthly mulch bed maintenance to my clients. If their mulch beds are looking good, they're going to be more happy with the investment they made. The neighbors are going to see that they're happy with it. The neighbors are going to see the job, okay? And our truck is going to be over there more often. It's more advertisement for us, and it's also more work. So I always will put a proposal in the estimate that I send to them for ongoing mulch bed maintenance, okay? And then I'll also typically put, a date when it expires, which is typically 72 hours after the date that I send it. There are times that I'll still honor it. It's not a guarantee that I will, but you want to create a little bit of a sense of urgency for them to make the commitment to you. Otherwise, they might be calling other people or they'll be doing other things. It all comes down to how you want to run your business. I'm not a high pressure person by any means, but when I put that estimate together, I say, hey, here, Mr. Customer, we get a lot of people that are calling for this type of work. The amount or how quickly I can get your job worked in if you approve it is largely influenced by how long it takes for you to make the approval or give it back to me. And then when I get the approval, I'll get an email back from them. I ask them to send me an email saying that they've read the terms and they agree to it. And then I send mine over from QuickBooks. So I ask them to print out a copy of the estimate and return to me a printed and signed copy of every page of the estimate. It's just so I have a copy, I have something to refer to when it's all said and done. Because once we've done the work, okay, we talk to them, we schedule it, and we communicate with them. If we're going to be late, we call and communicate with them. We make sure that we're able to schedule it so that the project gets done, within their terms or within their idea of when they want to have it done. Okay, we come by, we do the work, we've done before photos when we got started, we finished the work we did after photos, then we walk through the job with them. If they're not able to do that, we send a follow-up, we readdress everything we said we were going to do, and we highlight that stuff, and then we send them pictures. Here you go, everything is done. So we have something to show that we've been over the top of communication. There's nothing left out in their mind because we want to give them what they want. I mean, we're not there to take advantage of anybody, and I don't think almost all of them don't want to take advantage of us. But communicating with your client is going to help you. It's going to help increase the retention that if they're still in that home next year or the year thereafter, that they're going to call you for the work or they're going to tell other people about you. Okay, so we've done all of that. Some things to consider before you start your work. Here in Central Indiana, we got to call 811. Do they have buried downspouts? Do they have invisible pet fences wiring? Do they have drip systems in their beds? All this kind of stuff. Do they have buried downspouts from the gutters? You got to make sure that all that stuff is marked too. When you call 811, they're not going to do that. So I always tell the customer that in my estimates, their responsibility to handle it. We'll treat the property the same as it is that if it's our own, but we just can't provide 100% guarantee on anything. I don't even go that far. I just tell them flat out, it's your responsibility to get them marked, and we'll do the best we can to avoid any of the marked areas. Boom. It's never an issue. It never is. And when you've talked to so many clients over time, you'll become very calm, and you'll have all of it down because the more you do it, the more experience you get, and you want to make sure that when you're talking with your clients that you're calm, okay? If you're speeding quickly like I've done in a lot of this video, or if the tempo of the conversation is fast and slow, fast and slow, or you sound, like you're nervous, etc., it makes it a little more difficult for them to feel comfortable with you. You'll get this down over time. When I first started doing this, I did role-playing in the mirror, where I had a client, an issue came up in a job, and so I researched how to address that issue ahead of time for future jobs, and then I would go in the mirror and I would talk to myself like I was talking to the client until I got it down. And then I got it down, and now I never feel uncomfortable in front of a client, no matter what the issue is, but I've done, I don't know, maybe tens of thousands of presentations over the years as a result. We talked about the photos. Those are important. Once all the work is done, I like to ask them if they'll let us put a sign in their lawn for a week. If it's Tuesday, I'll say, hey, it's Tuesday, 5 o'clock. I'll be back next Friday, or next Tuesday, rather, at 5 o'clock to pick it up. If I don't know, I'll tell you what, I'll give you a 10% discount if you let me put it in. And I never offer that up front because oftentimes they'll let you do it. And I can't tell you over the years how many times I've gotten calls from people in the neighborhood because they saw the sign. Okay, I asked them also, I send them a follow-up email. Would you consider giving us, a Google review? Would you consider, giving us a review on your Facebook neighborhood page or your next door page, whatever? Any of that kind of stuff. More times than not, they're happy to do that. That helps you, get you more exposure. You've got the sign out there, and you're getting more potential business. And then as an added step, what I do is I look at all the houses on that street, and I'll write a letter. Hey, we were in the area, within the last couple of weeks, we did a mulch job at this address. We'd like to be able to help you out. If you're interested in an estimate, here you go. Insert a business card, put that envelope in the mail with a stamp, boom. 2 weeks later, oftentimes I get a phone call from somebody. In fact, oftentimes I don't even have to do that, because people will see our truck outside and they'll say, hey, you're next door doing a mulch job. Could you give me an estimate? Or last week you were by. But I can tell you, if you do this, if you do these signs, do the follow-up with the clients, and you have your photos, etc., it just helps you to get more business, especially those letters. It's going to be something that's going to help you be more successful over time. What we always do each season is we look at the past year, and everybody that did mulch with us, we send them an estimate automatically. Of course, we ask them, this estimate is pending there aren't any major changes or whatever, and we'll send it out to them. And there's a big chunk of business that we get every year by being proactive like that. And I think that's pretty much it. Now, I've just kind of shot this off the hip, and right before I pushed the record button, I took some brief notes. But this is, I tell you, if you implement some of these ideas into your program, if you haven't done any of this stuff, you're going to find over time that you're going to get more business. And here's the thing as well. You might do really good work for a client, okay? They might be super happy. But don't take that for granted. Don't assume that because you did that and you're on good terms with them, that they're just going to contact you next year. Because it could very well be an issue where someone else contacted them, or they lost your business card because, a lot happens in a year or whatever, and they don't reach out to you. You didn't initiate any correspondence, and then they had somebody else do the work. That's happened sometimes in the past for me over the years. So I'm always proactive. I'm always about a month and a half to 2 months early ahead of the season, so I can get the conversation going, and I can stay fresh in their minds. Anyway, I hope that this helps you. The goal here is to help you to secure more jobs, to help you to think more, critically ahead of time, and take your own notes. When you go into a job, if someone turns down your estimate, take notes why. Find out what it is. There are going to be some people that don't want to pay your price, and that's okay. But your goal isn't to just get a job so you just have the work to do. Your goal is going to be to get the job and to yield a good profit, okay? And the more you do this, the better you're going to be at that. And if you're doing good work and you're communicating with your clients, you're going to be really successful. I hope this video helps you. If you have any questions related to estimating or anything like that, please put them down in the comment section below. I'll do the best I can to get back to you as soon as possible. Oftentimes I get really busy, so sometimes I'm hit and miss on producing videos or following up on the comments. But I do want to see you succeed, and I hope that 2024 is the best season for you. And as far as mulching specifically for 2024, I would not wait until April or May. I would get started at the top of May at the very least. Okay, get started, get out there, communicate with your clients, and set your goals high for 2024. Make it, look at your best year and see what you can do to make this your best year and what you have to do to get there. I hope you're successful. If you like this video, would you kindly push the like button, maybe subscribe if you haven't already. Peace.